I've been waiting all day to share this story with all of you. It's about a synchronicity that happened to me last night, and I think it's a really good way to segue into part 3 of Epstein Invisible Tentacles and talk more about a very prominent figure in the state of Israel and how that ties in with a group who released this film. Because up until 5 days ago, I had never heard of this movie. I didn't know anything about the history of Canon Films or Canon Group and how the two cousins who founded that group had deep ties to the state of Israel, how their ascension into the arts and into filmmaking more or less started with a documentary they made regarding an operation in Tebbe that I shared in my last video that was basically a rescue mission regarding the hijacking of a plane that occurred and that was rerouted to Uganda. I didn't know any of this stuff. And the greatest thing about social media to me is that I get to learn along with all of you. And I get to share that information with you because a lot of people just don't have the time or don't want to take the time to do the research. But I want to. And I want to share a story with you real quick. Last night, me and my wife and daughter were sitting in the living room and having dinner. And my daughter said, "Can we watch Gilmore Girls?" Because she's rewatching the entire series. And I've seen a lot of it. I watched quite a few episodes with her the first time around. But last night we were watching season 2, episode 12. And that episode is called Richard in Stars Hollow. And it's a really funny episode about him being newly retired and driving his wife crazy because he's around all the time when he usually wasn't, and how she works with Lorelai, her daughter, to pawn him off on her for the day, and how he follows her around and drives her nuts. Anyway, it was pretty funny. But there was a scene in the show where Rory, Lorelai's daughter, they're in the movie store picking out VHS cassettes, right? And I remember I turned to my daughter and said, "Oh, wow, that's what we used to do. I loved going to the movie store and sometimes spending an hour picking out our movies and getting the popcorn and the candy. It was a whole event when I was younger. And I miss those days." But regardless, I was telling her about that. And then I noticed as they were in the video store talking, Rory said to Lorelai, she says, "Well, how about we get Electric Boogaloo, right?" And I think she says something to the effect of like, make it like a whole party thing, right? And I heard her say Electric Boogaloo, and some time passed, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, did she just say that? And I was suddenly I got these chills because in my last couple videos I've talked about Electric Boogaloo, not in depth, but because it is one of the films that Canon Group released, right? And then in later on there was a documentary made about the history of Canon Films, but that wasn't released by them. But anyway, I was thinking to myself, 2 times in the last 5 days I've not only learned about what Electric Boogaloo was and some of the history about those who released it, but someone on a show that was originally aired 20-something years ago is talking about Electric Boogaloo, and I just happened to be watching this with my daughter, and I happened to hear that at the right time. Total synchronicity. But at the time when this operation in Tebbe occurred, the defense minister for the state of Israel was Shimon Peres. Now, who is Shimon Peres? Because I've said this name many times and I had asked you to remember this name, and hopefully you had. He was an Israeli politician and statesman who served as the Prime Minister of Israel from 1984 to 1986 and from 1995 to 96, and as the President of Israel from 2007 to 2014. He was a member of 12 cabinets and represented 5 political parties in a political career spanning 70 years. Peres was elected to the Knesset in November 1959, and except for 3 months out of office in early 2006, served as a member of the Knesset continuously until he was elected president in 2007. Serving in the Knesset for 48 years, with the first uninterrupted stretch lasting more than 46 years, Peres is the longest-serving member in the Knesset's history. This is where Sharon Stone comes back into the picture. Not only having been involved in King Solomon's Mines and Alan Quatermain and Lost City of Gold that were released by Canon Films, but she's also had a long-standing, well-documented affinity for Israel, having visited multiple times to promote peace, support humanitarian causes, and meet with officials like Shimon Peres. Known for her pro-Israel stance, she has expressed love for the country, visited the Western Wall, and met with families of hostages. You can read her support for peace efforts, but below here, during a 2006 visit, she famously visited the Western Wall in Jerusalem, where she placed a prayer for peace. This article from 2006 says, Sharon Stone is ready to do her part for Mideast peace. The Basic Instinct actress said she would kiss just about anybody to end the Israel-Arab conflict. She arrived in Israel on Tuesday for a 5-day trip sponsored by the Peres Center for Peace, founded by Nobel Peace Laureate Shimon Peres in 1996, to improve relations with Arabs. It's her first visit to the Holy Land. Stone, joined by Peres at a Tel Aviv news conference, said she couldn't solve the ongoing conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, but could use her fame to help encourage peace efforts. I would kiss just about anybody for peace in the Middle East, she said Wednesday, drawing laughter from a throng of Israeli reporters. Stone playfully turned down calls to give Peres a peck on the cheek. Noting that it was International Women's Day, Stone suggested that more women become involved in the male-dominated world of Mideast peace talks. Women consider thoughts and feelings more than men, she said. Again, beginning in March of 2006, these two individuals established a close professional friendship and working relationship. Their initial meeting that we talked about, in 2013, Stone referred to Peres as her mentor when she returned to Israel to attend his 90th birthday celebration. Stone later described Peres as a very, very, very dear friend. In one particular email passage in the Epstein files, which Shimon Peres' name is in dozens of different files, but this one starts off with a David Mitchell saying, "Can you come with me for a very intimate dinner with Shimon Peres tonight at 7:30, 6 people?" To which Jeffrey Epstein responds, "I find restaurants confining. Would you be open to having dinner at my house? Conversations are more lively," it said on the cutoff, in private. A little while later, David Mitchell says, "Are you okay with this?" A little later than that, "They are checking with Peres' people now. We'll know in 1 hour. Might be 12 to 18 people. Is that an issue?" And Jeffrey Epstein responded by saying, "No." I feel it's worth mentioning that a woman named Colette Avital, a former senior diplomat, alleged that late statesman forcibly kissed her during a work meeting while he was prime minister, assaulted her at Paris Hotel several years earlier, and this was from 2021. And a week after Colette Avital made these allegations, Channel 12 aired a short statement from a second person accusing Peres of sexual harassment. And in the same week, Israeli politician and MK Eliezer Stern publicly admitted to shredding anonymous complaints of sexual harassment during his time as the head of the IDF Manpower Directorate. And all of what I just presented to you is going to segue into part 4, where we're going to focus heavily on human trafficking. So I appreciate all of your time, and I hope you'll stick with me in this last part coming up. Peace out.